Hey guys, I'm going to go over 6 problems that may help you with your Khan Academy assignments. Okay, these are when we are simplifying expressions using the laws of exponents. Okay, but when there are multiple properties involved. Okay, so for instance, on this first example, okay, if we have parentheses, right, that means we have to simplify what is on the inside first. Okay, but that's if we can, right? And I say if we can because if you have a base of 2 and a base of 3, those numbers are not the same, so we cannot combine those two. Okay, so now we'd have to move to our power to power. So I'd have to take my -2 and multiply it by -8, and -2 multiplied by 4. So now it's going to become 2, -8 times -2 is a positive 16, right, times 3 to the -8 power. Okay, so if we're going to eliminate the negative exponents, right, we have to take my base with its negative exponent, and that is what gets moved below the fraction, right? So if I make that into a fraction, 2 to the 16th power stays on top as my numerator. 3 now becomes to the 8th power because we moved it to our denominator. And that is our final answer. Okay, so if you notice in our first example, our bases were 2 and 3. Even though they were numbers, they were considered our base, right? Because those are the ones that had the exponents. Okay, so remember, base, whether it's a letter or a number, is the one that is raised to the exponent. Okay, so in our next example, right, my bases are K and J. Okay, those are inside parentheses, but I cannot combine them because they are different bases. Okay, so my next move is to do power to power. So I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to distribute it to the -2 and to the 1, right? So now it's going to become K to the -6, J to the 3rd power. If we're rewriting to not have any negative exponents, right? That means that I'm going to take this K to the -6, and that's the one that's going to go below my fraction as my denominator. So my final answer will be J to the 3rd power, K to the 6th power. And that's my final answer. Okay, so for our next example, we still have parentheses, right? This time, if I look at my bases, I've got M and M. Because they are the same, I can simplify. Sorry. Okay, because they are the same base, that means that I can simplify inside of the parentheses first, right? So inside parentheses, I would have M 2 plus a -6, right? Because remember, we add our exponents when we multiply. So then that simplifies to be M to the -4th power. And then we cannot forget that 2 that we had on the outside. Okay, so if we multiply those, my final answer is going to be M to the -8. If we are rewriting without negative exponents, then I drop that to be my denominator, M to the 8th power, 1 on the top, and now that is my final answer. Okay, if we look at that same problem, okay, remember it was M to the 2nd power times m to the negative sixth power, and that is all raised to the second power. Okay, let's say we forgot that we can combine our m and our m first, right? And so let's say that we just went automatically to power. That means each of those had to get a 2, right? So now it should have been m to the fourth power times m to the negative 12. Okay, if I simplify those now, they will become m to the negative 8, and then it's still going to equal 1 over m to the 8th power. Okay, so either way you chose, whether you wanted to simplify inside parentheses first or power to power first, right? See how my answer still simplified to be the same. Okay? Okay, so moving on to our next example. This one has a fraction inside parentheses, right? With an exponent on the outside. Okay, so you have two options on this one. You can take your exponent on the outside and distribute to each thing, each fraction on the top, each numerator and denominator, okay? Or you can simplify inside parentheses first, since you have an m and an m, which are the same base. So I'm going to choose that option. I'm going to simplify inside parentheses first. So I'm going to say m negative 6 minus 2, right? And that's still raised to the fourth power. So inside parentheses, I'm going to get m to the negative 8 to the fourth power, right? So then that is m to the negative 32. Is that right? Okay, I just want to make sure I did that right. Yes, I'm sure. So then if I'm rewriting without negatives, remember that's the one that drops below the fraction. So it becomes m to the positive 32, 1 on top, final answer. Okay, moving on to the next one. I've got a fraction inside of parentheses again. Notice how my bases are different this time. I've got a 5 and a 7. So I cannot simplify what is on the inside. So I'm going to move to my power to power. Each item gets the 2. So now it's 5 to the 14th, 7, whoa, Jack, to the 12th, and we can keep that as our final answer. Okay, so now I have two fractions inside of parentheses. My main operation is multiplication. I'm moving to see what my bases are. My bases are 1/5 and 1/5. I know they are my bases because each of them have an exponent. Okay? If they are the same base, remember, we can simplify them, combine them, and so if I'm multiplying, my law tells me to add my exponents on the top. Okay, so if I'm simplifying this, I'm going to get 1/5 to the 5th power, and then that is still raised to the 4th, right? So now I can apply my power to power rule. So my final answer will be 1/5 to the 20th power, and we can leave it like that.